Hey guys, I'm Chris Buck and a very warm welcome to Friday Fretworks. And this week we're taking a look at a vintage valve amp which I can say with some certainty you have never heard of. But I can near enough guarantee you have absolutely heard, at least on record. That is of course the Laney Klipp. About 10 years ago now, I came across an amp for sale in one of my favourite guitar shops actually, World of Guitars in Cheltenham in the UK. Hello Tony if you're watching. Had no idea what it was, but thought that for £150 for an amp that at least worked and looked pretty cool and retro, it was going to be worth a punt. Bought it, took it home, very promptly found out that the Laney Klipp is without a shadow of a doubt the loudest amp I've played in my entire life. Now that seems like a fairly obvious thing to say about a 100-watt vintage valve guitar amp, but a Laney Klipp atop a 4x12 speaker cabinet is a visceral experience. The transients are like nothing I've ever experienced, maybe short of being beaten around the head with a cricket bat, and there's a punch and a clarity to every single note, which is very much like a punch in the chest. It really is something to behold. Couple that with the fact that not long after I bought it, clumsy 19-year-old me managed to snap the volume knob off the amp, which meant that for the longest time, up until I had it repaired very recently, there was only really two volumes to the amp, off or we're calling the police. So, as you can imagine, 19-year-old me had very little idea as to what to do with it, especially prior to buying it with no concept of what a non-master volume amp was. That, of course, meaning that if you want to get any meaningful levels of gain out of the Klipp, you have to be prepared to turn it up to a level where you are probably going to forcibly remove the eyebrows from your face. Also, at that particular point in my life, as I've referenced in recent videos, I was very much in the throngs of my Marshall JCM 800 saturated gain tone chasing days. I'm ashamed to say that the Klipp sat underused and criminally underappreciated for a very long time, and it's only really in recent years that I've realised this is not only one of the best amps that I own, but possibly one of the best amps that I've ever played. But before we get into any of that, it's worth a quick recap on its history. A rewind to 1971 and Black Sabbath, fresh from the success of their landmark debut record, are soon to enter the studio to start tracking their second Masters of Reality. It's no secret that that first Sabbath record pretty much single-handedly pioneered the sound of heavy metal, and it was very much Tony Iommi's setup that was at the heart of that sound. His now famed Gibson Monkey SG, a Dallas Rangemaster pedal, essentially an overdrive pedal in today's terms, and a Laney LA100 BL. Lyndon Laney, the man and name behind Laney amplification, in seeing how Tony was achieving this iconic tone, set about designing the Klipp, essentially moving the Dallas Rangemaster to its own circuit or its own channel within the amp, thus creating the first amp ever made with its own dedicated boost circuit. Tony Iommi reportedly loved the innovation and, according to Laney, started using the LA100 BL and Klipp in combination for not only Masters of Reality, but several albums that were to follow, thus becoming an integral part of the Black Sabbath sound. Now today I'm going to try and approximate the tone of Sweetleaf, the first track on Masters of Reality, using the Klipp, of course my Yamaha Revstar 502 with P90s, as close as I have to that SG with P90s, a Hello Sailor Dallas Rangemaster clone pedal, and of course the Universal Audio Aux, without which, 4x12 emulation therein, it honestly wouldn't really be anywhere near appropriate or achievable to achieve such levels of gain from the amp. As I said, it gives you some idea as to how loud Tony must have been running these amps in the studio, that for the most part of the kind of comparison, I'm fairly matched in terms of tone and gain, at which point in the bridge, Tony clearly kicks on another pedal. Interesting to see that there isn't any discernible increase in volume, it's just more gain, which gives you some idea that for an amp with so much headroom like the Klipp, how loud he must have been running these in the studios. I imagine it was pretty deafening. The Klipp was officially introduced a year later in 1972, and they were hand-wired at Laney's Custard Factory location in Digbeth in the centre of Birmingham in the UK. Now, obviously Black Sabbath are pretty synonymous with the sound of Laney, but in researching this video it's been amazing to see how many bands actually put the Klipp to great use. Now, if somehow you're not necessarily familiar with the sound of Black Sabbath, I would say that you've definitely heard Slade's ubiquitous Christmas hit, Merry Christmas Everybody, which, being a black country band, it's no surprise to read that that is in fact a Laney Klipp, as is Mama We're All Crazy Now and Come On Feel the Noise. ELO were also reportedly big fans of the Klipp, as were Argent, as you can see in this clip, no pun intended, taken from the Earl Grey Whistle Test with their performance of God Gave Rock and Roll to You, where you can see an array of Laney Klipp stacks. Back to present day, and as I said, I'm slightly ashamed to admit how long it took me to really appreciate the Klipp's potential. If you're looking for clean to edge of breakup tones, it really is miraculous. The Klipp channel is admittedly a little bit of an acquired taste. It essentially mixes in a fuzzy layer on top of your clean tone, which, if you're not in a situation where you can't crank the volume of the amp to get some natural saturation, which then blends in with the Klipp channel, admittedly very effectively, if you can't really do that, you are left with a sound which is a little bit like trying to mix oil and water. It's a little bit strange and, as I said, can be an acquired taste. But the normal channel, whose topology is apparently very similar to a Marshall Super Bass, save of course for the revered Partridge transformers that you get in a Klipp, is really something to behold. As I said, this transience, this clarity, this everything you want from a great sounding amp. I actually used this at a show a few years ago with Bernie Marsden. I think you can just about see it creeping into the corner of this photo. And having a chance to really crank it up and get it working, as I said, was a really fun experience. And the only downside for me personally is that, of course, it doesn't have reverb. Being a reverb junkie, but having never really kind of invested in any great outboard reverb units, it's a little bit of a downside. So, of course, having a chance to run it through the aux, get it to the point where it is overdriving very slightly. As I said, unless you're willing to really kind of endanger local wildlife through a cab, that's not going to be achievable outside of a studio scenario at the very least. Having a chance to run it through the aux with a lush plate reverb has been a really fun experience. So what came next for the Klipp? As I said, it was introduced in 1972 and was manufactured for a period of 8 years, up until 1980, at which point it was discontinued around about the same time that Laney moved from the original Custard Factory location, it's a joke in there about creamy tone, no doubt, over to their new factory in Cradley Heath. Now, of course, Tony Iommi is particularly synonymous with the sound of Laney, but as every musician does, has experimented with different gear over the years, actually used Marshall heads for quite a long period of Black Sabbath, but in more recent years has come back to Laney and has actually had a succession of signature products with the brand, notably pedals and of course amps, the most recent of which being a really cool, really accurate recreation of that LA 100 BL that was so important to the sound of that debut Sabbath record. I think in light of that reissue, a lot of people expected it to be a reissue of the Klipp to follow, but as of 2020, nothing has yet materialised, and as such, prices of the original unit still continue to steadily rise, and a quick look on Reverb has shown that you're looking to pay anywhere between £800 and £1,200 for a good example of a Klipp. Yes, it is a bit cranky, and used for any prolonged period of time will heat up to roughly the temperature of the core of the Earth, so if you do get one, or you do have one, be sure to keep it well ventilated. But as I said, this is one of the most impressive amps I've ever played, and I'm really excited to get out of the rehearsal room, which is pretty much the only live outlet I have at the moment, and actually put it through its paces on a live stage again. I'm really excited to get gigging full stop, to be honest. As ever, I'm Chris Buck. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you to Laney for the help in all the info provided for this video. Please subscribe, hit the bell icon if you haven't already, and I shall see you next week for another episode. Cheers guys, take care, and I'll see you soon.